What a huge week to be a DC fan. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X, Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Saturday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. And yes, it's been a huge week to be a DC fan. Millie Alcock has been cast as Supergirl earlier this week. Very happy with that casting. She's a very good actor. Some people have heard of her from House of Dragons, the Game of Thrones prequel. Some of you may not have heard of her, but you don't need to hear of someone for them to be good at what they do. Also yesterday, James Gunn finally announced his composer for Superman Legacy, something we've spoken about a great deal on this platform, and it's a very predictable choice. It's his former collaborator, John Murphy, who composed 2021's DC movie. Yes, he's composed a DC movie before, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and he recently composed Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So he seems to be the new kind of composer of James Gunn, because he's done the past couple of movies with him. Now, I'm going to be very, very honest with you. This announcement doesn't excite me. It doesn't make me angry. It doesn't upset me. It's not like I expected him to announce Hans Zimmer or Junkie XL or anything like that. Every director has their composer that they like. So, you know, this is not much of a surprise. We did speak about in the past maybe John Williams doing his final score for his final movie and it being Superman Legacy. Maybe that's a bit above James Gunn's pay grade. Maybe he just doesn't have the influence to get a composer like that. Or just maybe he actually wanted John Murphy to compose the score. As I say, every director has, you know, the prerogative to choose the people they want to work with. And that's quite right. And that's quite proper. I've been trying to reunite with John's type of music by listening to the Suicide Squad score this morning while boiling my eggs for breakfast. And listen, I think he's a really good composer. He's well respected within the industry. That isn't really the issue. His music doesn't stick in your mind. He did create a good theme for the Suicide Squad. He likes the drums in that movie. He loves the electric guitar. There's a lot of that. That's clearly the style that he and James wanted to work in via the Suicide Squad. But Superman is a different kind of situation entirely. Because there's one thing I know about every Superman film, whether you deem them as good Superman movies or not, you remember every score from those movies. We remember the Superman the movie score, Superman 2, Superman 3, even to Superman 4, you know, to a lesser extent. And then Superman Returns. John Ottman scored Superman Returns, a composer you may not have heard of. He also edited that movie. A little morsel a lot of you probably didn't know. And John Ottman's score for Superman Returns is grandiose. It's really, really good. It's one of the strongest Superman scores I've ever heard. Man of Steel, BVS, Justice League, all movies that, you know, Superman was a part of. Again, really brilliant scores, memorable scores. But thus far, you know, I think he scored 28 Days Later as well. But thus far, for me personally, John hasn't scored a movie where I've remembered the music. We do, look, my generation come from a place in history where scores were memorable, that scores were anthems. We don't really get that as much now in comic book movies. We had it a bit with the Avengers theme in the early days of the MCU, but you try remembering a lot of the themes from Captain America, the Winter Soldier, the music from the first Captain America 4. You couldn't really remember that music unless you go back and remind yourself of it. It's a different mentality of scoring music. Now, what will be interesting here, Will James Gunn continue in that way by just having music that works for said film, but music doesn't get remembered? Or does he want John Murphy to make a score that's going to be memorable, full of anthems and themes and music that will be unforgettable? Now, John did respond to the news that he's scoring Superman Legacy. He has said, and James has said this in his reaction and his announcement of John scoring the movie, that he's already composed loads of music via James's script. Now, John admits this is a very unconventional way of scoring a movie. But I like the unconventional. We've spoken about how unconventional Zack Snyder is as a filmmaker. Unconventional people are the best people because they create new paradigm shifts. But James Gunn wants a lot of this music to be played while he's shooting the movie. That's why he wanted John to actually compose some or all of the music via looking at his script. John said he liked doing this and he prefers doing this rather than doing it while watching the actual finished movie, where you have to stop and you have to stop for the end of the scene and things like that. And so it's all very, very interesting. As I say, yes, I'm a bit underwhelmed by the announcement of the composer, but I don't dislike the composer. I like the music to the Suicide Squad. It works for the Suicide Squad. As I say, it's not a memorable kind of score, but James Gunn really likes him. He said he really likes him, and he's the composer he's going to use. And until we listen to his music, we don't know what kind of music he's going to give us. But in terms of John Murphy's history, he's not really ever scored a movie like this before. So it's interesting. James Gunn's an interesting filmmaker, even though the general audience, really like him, and he's made films that have made money, mostly. He's not your typical writer-director. He doesn't make typical movies. In a way, his movies are different to the norm. There is a James Gunn style, and we don't know if Superman Legacy will be part of that James Gunn style, or if he's going to incorporate himself to making an actual traditional Superman movie. Because nobody even knows what Superman Legacy is going to be. Nobody knows. Everyone's making these assumptions. As I say every day, I don't think Superman Legacy is going to be the film the haters think it's going to be, or the lovers think it's going to be. And it will be very, very interesting what type of film it's going to be. But John Murphy will be composing the score to Superman Legacy. James Gunn has written Superman Legacy, whether you like it or not, and he's going to be directing Superman Legacy, whether you like it or not. If you gave me a choice of writer-directors to write and direct the Superman film, James Gunn probably wouldn't have been my first picks. Although back in the day after I saw Guardians 1, I did kind of think to myself, maybe he would make a really good, exciting, optimistic Superman movie, because Guardians of the Galaxy is very optimistic, but it does play around with dark themes as well, which I think is important for a superhero movie, that it's not all just happy and funny, that it's trying to tell a story. And James always is trying to tell some sort of a story. Because despite what his haters say about him, he's not all about jokes and cheap gags. There are a lot of serious themes in James Gunn's movies if you're actually paying attention. So it is going to be one hell of a movie. And everyone's talking, one thing we can say, everyone's talking about James Gunn's potential Superman Legacy. Some are excited, some are toxic. It's a very interesting situation because film and the industry finds itself at a weird time. It is struggling. The superhero genre was the peak of the industry. It was the way the old Western was. Everything a few years ago was superhero this, superhero that, whether it was on streaming, television, right? And some believe that the superhero bubble has burst. I'm not convinced we're away from that genre totally. And James Gunn has got a really big job on his hands because he's developing a franchise that won't be like the MCU, despite what the haters say. It's going to be a franchise that doesn't give you 4 to 6 movies a year or 4 or 5 streaming shows a year. He's already said that. We're only getting Superman Legacy as the main DC film from DC Universe in 2025. We are supposed to be getting the Batman 2. I expect that film to be put back because I just don't see how Matt makes this film at his pace, his usual directorial pace, and it comes out in 2025. We'll see if I'm right or wrong about that. So, in closing, what do I think about John Murphy composing the score for Superman Legacy? And I'm always very, very honest, and this is not me hating towards John. I'm underwhelmed by the announcement. I expected the announcement. I was more hopeful it could be somebody else because James was taking his time in announcing this. It was interesting how long he's taken to announce this, but I suppose he picks his times so it has the biggest effect. And, you know, it's all hype at the end of the day. So I'm underwhelmed. But being underwhelmed doesn't mean I'm unhappy. I'm underwhelmed, not unhappy. I think John Murphy is a very, very good composer, and I owe him the right to, to tell his musical story in Superman Legacy and then judge him after I've heard what he's done. But it has been one hell of a week to be a DC fan. But there was more news yesterday because DC Studios, CNN Stories, Warner Brothers Discovery have acquired the Christopher Reeve biography documentary, Superman, the Christopher Reeve Story, or it's called something along those lines. Anyway, James Gunn has seen this documentary. He said it floored him. James said that him and Peter were desperate that Warner Brothers Discovery and DC Studios acquire the documentary. It is under the banner of DC Studios as well as other entities of Warner Brothers Discovery. So James Gunn is really working hard to make sure we respect DC history as well as working to a positive future for DC as well. And I can only admire that as well. So he's doing good things. I mean, I don't think, in terms of what he's doing with his films and his streaming shows and his ideas, I don't think he's done anything wrong. The interference in last year's DCEU movies is something that I have criticised and I wasn't happy about. But in terms of what he's doing for his own universe, I'm excited. I must admit, it doesn't mean it's going to work. It doesn't mean I'm going to love the movies or the streaming shows. But at the very least, he's creating his own world. And you can only credit him for that. He's trying his best. He's making a Superman film. It's very brave to introduce a DC universe via a Superman film. Because, as I said to him yesterday on Fred's, anyone who works on a Superman movie knows they have huge shoes to fill. There's no question about that. Whether you're playing Superman, I mean, look at David Corenswet, who actually has something very huge in common with Christopher Reeve. They both studied at the Performing Arts School, Juilliard. Something I didn't know until I read on the internet earlier on today when I was kind of doing my bit of my swatting for this video. I do like to look on social media before I come on, so I'm knowledgeable as much as I can be. But you always get your facts wrong, and that's okay. And someone's always going to take the pleasure in correcting you and saying you're a bad content creator. I'm a bad content creator anyway. Because we don't edit here, we just talk. That's what my motto should be. We don't edit, we don't write scripts, we don't prep. We just talk. Movies TV Mad, the platform that just talks. That's what I want to be. That's what I'm always going to be. There's not going to, I watch a lot of these videos that overly edit, and you see the clips all over the place, and it's boom, boom, boom. I'm here. I'm talking to you for half an hour fucking straight. Sometimes I pause, sometimes I don't. It depends what frame of mind I'm in. Let me talk to you about my living conditions in the month of January. I live in a very big house. I'm not bragging, but it's a fucking mansion. But it's a mansion that's impossible to heat. So I am fucking freezing right now. during the day I'm wearing an overcoat, a fleece with a hood on it. You wouldn't fucking recognize me, and I'm like this. So the only reason I'm keeping warm is via talking to you. So even if I never go viral, it's just good that I'm keeping myself warm. But anyway, for the people who do subscribe and who do loyally like and comment and come in every day, I want to thank you. Because there's not a lot of you, but I appreciate you. And I think we appreciate each other. You appreciate what I'm trying to do on this channel. I'm trying to update you with DC news, Doctor Who news sometimes, whatever we're talking about in the world of entertainment. But you know that I'm honest. You know that I speak from the heart. Basically, we are the same, McLeod. Basically, we are the same, right? We just care about entertainment. We're passionate. Sometimes our passion spills over. Sometimes when we've done lives on here, I've argued with some of you. And if I've upset you, I apologise. I'm a passionate guy. You're passionate, and that's okay. As long as we're not trying to be mean purposely. As long as we're not trying to hurt each other purposely either. So I'm very excited in the direction that DC is going in. I'm very excited about Elseworlds. I'm very excited about DC Universe. And as I say every single bloody day, I fucking love the Snyderverse. But as I said a million times, it was not commercially viable. I can admit that. It wasn't commercially viable, which basically means it wasn't for everyone, and that's okay. Now let's kind of look a little bit deeper into DC Universe. I want to talk about Lanterns for a little while. Lanterns is very, very interesting. Now there's some members of the DC fan base who say, where's my Green Lantern movie? I agree. In our fantasies, in our dreams, we want an epic, brilliant, awesome, Green Lantern movie. Bunch of Green Lantern movies. We want to see OR. We want to see the Lantern Corps. We want to see it all. We are seeing Guy Gardner in Superman Legacy, which will be very, very interesting. Will he be a Lantern at that point? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I'll talk about the DC characters in Superman Legacy very, very shortly. But Lanterns, as explained when James and Peter unleashed Gods and Monsters Part 1, will introduce the arc of Gods and Monsters Part 1. That's the part where he unleashes what the story of Gods and Monsters Part 1 is. I'm quite sure we will see elements of that in Creature Commandos later this year. Very excited for that as well. But Lanterns is where they're investigating what the arc of Gods and Monsters Part 1 will be. So basically, James Gunn has described this as kind of a True Detective Green Lantern show, merely called Lanterns. So clearly, maybe are they already Lanterns? I don't know. But it stars, the character John Stewart and Hal Jordan. We've always wanted to see these characters together in live action, so that's very exciting. But it's clear the Lanterns will play a big part in the DC universe. As we said, Guy Gardner, will be in Superman Legacy. I like the actor who's playing Guy Gardner. Some of you say he's James Gunn's friend. So what, man? Get over it. If I had a co-host who was my friend on here, would you be upset? Of course you fucking wouldn't. Listen, some people are going to hate, some people are going to love. I think, for me, right, I think it's really strange, as a fan of the DC Snyderverse, to hate James Gunn just because I love Zack. It's weird. As a Snyderverse fan, I think it's weird if I started hating Matt Reeves because I love Ben Affleck's Batman and I'm gutted that his Batman never happened. I think that's a weird thing to do. I don't hate one person because I love the other. I embrace. I give people a chance. I gave Matt Reeves a chance to make me a brilliant, epic, awesome Batman movie. Guess what he did? He gave me an awesome, brilliant, epic Batman movie, and I can't wait for Penguin. Penguin's happening later this year. Anyway, so Lanterns is going to be very, very interesting. Do we see all the Lantern abilities in it? What type of show? It's clear it's going to be grounded. Now, James Gunn, when speaking to Michael Rosenbaum on his Inside of You podcast, was speaking about using different genres in his comic book movies and TV shows, which basically means just using, elements like Lanterns being very similar to True Detective. That's interesting. They're investigating a crime, but they could be investigating, I would assume they are, an intergalactic crime that brings them to Earth. Very, very interesting, and an interesting way to launch kind of the Green Lantern Corps universe into DC Universe. It's a very clever way of doing it. This is why I'm very excited, because we're finally getting a DC franchise, even though I think it's risky to launch a DC universe, seeing how the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't successful anymore, but that's their fault. It's not because people don't want to see Cinematic Universes so much, it's because the Marvel Cinematic Universe wasn't polished up and kept fresh after Endgame. There's some people who believe that the MCU should have been no more after Endgame. I believe after Endgame they should have run right. The end. The MCU, that Marvel Cinematic Universe is over. We're recasting. It's a brand new universe. Either we do MCU Legends or whatever. They should have done something totally brand new. But they didn't do that because they wasn't brave enough. Because a lot of actors and directors have been speaking about this recently, that modern day movie makers and, studios are too worried about Wall Street. They're too worried about the bottom line. And it's damaged creativity. The people, the conglomerates are making the decisions about something they don't know about. Storytelling. They're too scared to make huge decisions. And until they go out there and recruit the young directors, whether they're male, whether they're female, whether they're trans, whether they're black, whether they're white, doesn't fucking matter. As long as they're fucking good. That's the point. And until they start doing that, which is the right way to be diverse, by hiring the talent, diverse, talented people, which means white, black, Asian, whatever. And just quickly, just to say, I'm very sorry to hear about the death of Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed in the Rocky series, as well as being in Mandalorian recently. He was in Action Jackson. He was in Predator 2. The guy was a fucking legend. Carl Weathers was proof that you didn't need to see yourself on the screen, because he was one of the coolest dudes on my movie screen, and I wanted to be just like him. So R.I.P. to Carl Weathers. You were a fucking legend, my friend. Anyway, back to today's DC Universe Daily. So, really, Lanterns is a very, very interesting series to look out for. Now, let's go back to Superman Legacy and the DC characters. We've got Metamorpho, right? We've got Hawkgirl, very, very interesting. As I've said, we've got Guy Gardner, who's a member of the Lantern Corps. And we've got a few other DC characters in this movie as well. Now, James Gunn has been accused of over-peppering Superman Legacy for cheap cameos. James has denied this accusation. He says every character in Superman Legacy is part of this story and is an important part of Superman and Lois' story, which means they're there for a reason. Let's assume they don't actually live in Metropolis, right? Why are they there? And this points towards the kind of villain we could be getting in Superman Legacy. Because could Superman Legacy unleash, for example, a Green Lantern villain like Parallax or, Sinestro? It could be that type of villain, which would be weird in a way to have a kind of a Green Lantern Corps OR kind of villain. But it also would be very different and very interesting. And James Gunn has already spoken about doing different things and talking about how other superhero movies, other comic book movies have been too ordinary, repeating themselves, too lazy, too bland. So don't be surprised if we do get a villain like Parallax or, Sinestro. But that's just an option. I don't know anything. I'm just guessing here. Because I'm kind of, I've sent James Gunn a question on Threads. It's very sad. He's not on Twitter anymore. I checked his past kind of communications on Twitter, ex-Twitter. He's not on there. He doesn't post. I'm sure he comes on there and checks things out, but he's not posting on there. He's been driven off Twitter. Now, whether you like James Gunn or you hate James Gunn, driving a director and making him excommunicate on a social platform is absolutely disgusting. And I've only just recently gone on to Threads, and one of my main motivations on going on Threads is because I'm a content creator. I do need to know what James Gunn says. I am lucky. There are accounts on Twitter that screenshot what he says on Threads, but I want to be able to interact with the man. He's making a Superman movie. He's guiding and moulding a brand new DC universe. Now, I have to be able to know what he's saying. And so I don't hate James Gunn. I respect him as a good writer-director, as I've said many, many times. But I've also criticised James before. Some of the things he said and done, all of that. Because, as I said to someone yesterday, Stephen Moffat came onto Twitter yesterday. You know, he's saying, whatever I say, people take it the wrong way. And I said, you should be able to criticise or say something nice without people taking it the wrong way. But I understand you're high profile, blah, 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 blah. So it's very difficult in this day and age to be a creative. If someone's always got an opinion on you, right? I mean, to be a public figure is very, very difficult. But anyway, I asked James Gunn, I'm not getting to the point, am I? I asked James Gunn on Threads this morning. He hasn't answered me yet because I only just posted the thread. But I asked him if Lex Luthor is the main villain in Superman Legacy. Now, we all know, we don't need to be James Gunn. Lex Luthor is in the movie, but he isn't going to be the main villain. I'm sure James Gunn has already answered that question, but I want him to clarify that to me so we can have a bit of a bigger discussion in the next few days on the next DC Universe or the next, whatever, DC Universe Daily. I think it'll be fun. I can't wait to know who the villain's going to be. Will James Gunn make a big announcement? Or will it be a surprise? Is James Gunn going to be able to stop people with long lenses when they're on location of taking these pictures? It's going to be interesting. James Gunn's normally very, very good at protecting his secrets, whether he's on location or on set in studios. So we will see about that. But yeah, I'm very interested to discuss this properly. But we will in the final few minutes of this video discuss who could be the villain of Superman Legacy. Lex Luthor will be there, but he won't be the main villain. I think it's pretty obvious to say that. So we've spoken about Parallax, we've spoken about Sinestro, who I think is fantastic. But then you've got lots of other options. The usual contenders would be Brainiac, of course. Now, Doomsday, I'd be very, very surprised though. We need, Superman needs to earn the right to get to Doomsday. Lobo, announce Lobo. James Gunn, please announce Lobo. I mean, pretty much Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has finished its cinematic run. Announce Lobo. We know Jason Momoa is playing Lobo. He can't wait to tell us, even though he kind of denied that he's been offered that part in DC Universe. But I don't believe Jason. He's lying. They have to lie. He's not being a bad person for lying about it, by the way. But yeah, damn well announce Lobo. Can't wait for that to be something that I can discuss because I love Lobo. I think Lobo's a brilliant character. He's kind of, as I say, he's not really a villain. He's neither a good guy or a bad guy, but he's a very interesting guy. And I think Jason Momoa can give us some great levels on Lobo. So we will see when that's announced. But I would say very, very soon. So Lobo won't be a main villain. Will Lobo be in Superman Legacy? I don't know if James Gunn has already dispersed that myth. But I would love to see Lobo in Superman Legacy. But it may not happen. But we will see. He'll turn up somewhere along the way. But this is what the exciting thing about having someone like James Gunn guiding this DC universe. Because he's going to give us Lobo. He's going to give us Hal Jordan and John Stewart in a series together. He's going to give us Guy Gardner. This is what you want. We don't have to wait for this. Guy Gardner and Hulk Girl, for Christ's sake, are going to be in a Superman movie, Superman Legacy. Don't you think that's exciting? Even if you're the biggest devout Snyder fan, don't you think that's damn well exciting? Because I do. It excites me when I think about it. Wow, Guy Gardner. Well, I don't think we've ever seen him in live action. I don't think that we have. And I think that's very, very exciting. So there's lots of options for the main villain in Superman Legacy. So it will be interesting what kind of... I mean, Brainiac, look. Brainiac is the one we've always wanted. It'll be very, very interesting. Is there a chance it's Brainiac? I think Brainiac will play a role some point in DC Universe, whether it's Gods and Monsters Part 1 or the next chapter. I think all chapters in this 10-year kind of story they're telling will have different titles to it, which is also a very nifty idea. Comment down below. Let me know, who do you think is going to be the villain of Superman Legacy? Who would you like to be the villain of Superman Legacy? Thank you everyone for tuning in for Saturday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. I will see you again soon.